All right, we get Marty Lurie on the phone.
Yes.
There he is, Mr. Marty Lurie.
I guess whenever you tell these guys, we'll call them. It's going to come from this number.
Yeah.
It's the Equity Bancorp number.
Oh, there you go. They probably, yeah. I may have to call them myself on my number.
Just kind of let them know.
Yeah. Let me try it here.
Hello?
Oh, there we go.
Hi, is this Marty?
Yes.
Marty, this is Edward Brown and Bruce McGowan. How are you?
Oh, very good. Very good.
Good. Well, thanks so much for joining us today on Sports Econ 101. Well, if we don't want to take too much of your time, so we'll actually, let's see. He's going to come with us for half an hour.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So how about we just get started? Okay.
All right.
All right. So what we do is Bruce and I do a quick little 2-minute introductory.
Yeah,
There we go.
Yeah.
Where we're basically going to tell people that you'll be on the next segment. So just kind of hang out with us and listen in. Okay. Here we go.
Okay.
Welcome. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. This is the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Bruce McGowan, longtime radio sports personality. Today's show is going to be really special. Why is that, Bruce?
Oh, we got my good friend Marty Lurie, who has been doing the Giants pre- and post-game shows for a number of years during their great World Series run. Also worked with Marty briefly when he was doing the same thing with the Oakland A's. So Marty's a Bay Area sports baseball guy.
All right.
Yeah.
And in the second segment, who are you?
We got Steve Bitker is going to join us from KCBS Radio, and he, of course, like Marty, is a big baseball guy, so we'll talk some more baseball there and maybe a little NBA wrap-up.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. So at each commercial break, we're going to ask a sports trivia question where we're going to be giving away a vacation to the correct email, the first email with the correct answer. The vacations are not sponsored by the radio station, but by Lighthouse Resort and Marina. And those vacations are free. Their only request is a $100 cleaning fee to cover the housekeeping expenses. Check them out at lighthouseresortandmarina.com. And this segment of Sports Econ 101 is sponsored by Pacific Private Money, providing mortgage investments that are currently yielding still over 8%, secured by mostly Bay Area real estate. Now, a lot of people in the Bay Area around the country, that's the San Francisco Bay Area, all right? It doesn't get any more conservative than that. You got to check them out at pacificprivatemoney.com. Bruce, we have just another quick minute before we have to cut the break.
Right.
So when we get Marty on the phone, we're mostly going to talk about baseball.
Yes, we are.
Okay. What else are we going to cover?
Well, with Marty, Marty is one of these guys like a lot of us that fall into one particular sport. It becomes a passion. It becomes a part of their lifestyle. And I think he probably has a lot more insight than most people because he's around it a lot more. So I think we'll just stick with baseball.
And that's my favorite sport.
And mine too.
All right. So when we come back, we're going to have Marty Lurie on. Don't touch that dial. Sports Econ 101 will be right back. All right. Thanks, Marty, for hanging out. I'm just going to save this file, and then we'll introduce you.
You at home, Marty?
Yes, hi, Bruce.
How you doing, man?
Good, very good.
Good.
So when the Giants are playing in Tampa tonight, and then where do they go next week after playing Tampa?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Oh, that's going to be a challenge. Boy, they have looked so good. Are you surprised? Well, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's get into that. I want to ask you about that because you've been covering them real closely. I've been so wrapped up with this Warrior thing, and now we're on the verge of losing that. So, going to have to start getting into the Giants, like a typical front runner.
So this show is going to air on the 25th.
25th.
So
Okay.
Today we don't know who won or lost.
Right.
The
So
NBA,
let's
we gotta be kinda
we'll
careful
not talk about the NBA so much. Yeah. Okay.
We could actually do two things. One, weren't those Warriors great? Weren't those Cleveland Cavaliers
Yeah, we'll have
great?
two versions of the show.
Yeah, exactly.
You can have them both on tape there.
It's like when they do, victory World Series shirts.
yeah.
And stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. Bruce, who's on the phone?
Good friend of mine, known for a number of years. He's been working in local radio and specifically doing pre- and post-game shows for the Oakland A's and now the San Francisco Giants for several years during their great run. And Marty Lurie joining us. And Marty, the Giants, once again, it seems like every other year, the even year they call it, they seem to have everything going. The pitching that they've gotten from Johnny Cueto and Jeff Samardzija has really added to the to the history of success of this franchise. And the question I have for you is, they're a little thin in the outfield. Their bullpen is still shaky. Is this a good enough team to win this division?
Oh, it is, Bruce. Number one, you have to look at the players and the teams in the division. And San Diego really has had a lot of trouble getting a full major league team on the field. Arizona has really underachieved, and they had that bullseye on their back coming out of spring training. Frankie got off to a slow start. They've had a number of injuries. And then Shelby Miller, they traded a lot for him. He has been a big disappointment. So those two teams really have been out of it. Colorado is a team that is just tough to win there with 81 games in that mile-high environment. So it really comes down to the Giants and the Dodgers have Kershaw and not much other starting pitching, and their bullpen is kind of shaky. They've had some injuries. The Giants really are the best team in the division, and they're playing that way too because you're getting great starting pitching, great defense. Their offense is underachieved a little bit, but when you compare them to everyone else in the division, they really are the strongest team. So it's not a surprise that they've got a nice 6.5 game lead right now.
And they won 16 as we speak, and it might be more by the time this show airs. They had won 16 one-run games, which I think counts for a lot in baseball because you know if you're in a close game, you'll find a way to win it. But more importantly, your pitching is going to keep that score down, so you're not going to be pressed to have to score 5 or 6 runs. Just score 4 or 5, and you got a great shot at winning.
Well, and also the manager is made for a team like this because he loves the bullpen, and he's adjusted. Usually he has a guy, maybe 2 guys from the 7th inning, 1 for the 8th, 1 for the 9th. So he's running six out there a game. So he's adjusted. He's into the matchups. He's managing like he's in the World Series right now, and it's working out for him.
Who do you think will be?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask you, who do you think would be on the trading block?
Well, there's no one on this team that on the 25-man roster that would be on the trading block. They have a number of minor league players, some pitchers. They have some infielders and a couple of outfielders who could bring something. Maybe the most well-known, I would say, is probably Andrew Susak, who's at Sacramento and coming back from some injuries, and Trevor Brown is the backup catcher. They seem to like him. So for recognizable names, I think Susak may be the most recognizable. But no one off this major league roster is going to be traded.
I was going to say, you've been covering this team fairly closely, so you've gotten to know some of these guys pretty well. What impresses you most about the character and the personality of that Giants clubhouse? Because they've had a core of guys, not a big number, but San Diego Garcia, for instance, and Madison Bumgarner, and Buster Posey have all been around, and then you've got Pagan and Crawford, who have been around for 2 of the 3 championships. So there's a culture of winning. And how can you quantify that or describe that? When you walk in that clubhouse, Marty, can you feel a certain aura from that team? You've been around baseball long enough to kind of know when you're around a winning team just by almost the feel of a clubhouse.
Yeah, there's no tension in the clubhouse. You don't have cliques. They seem to mix well. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the fact that they've been through this before, it's June. They know what can happen in July and August. They know what can happen in September. They're not going to be, awed by anything. And I think they're just ready to play every night.
I think it's great for the new players, Samardzija and Cueto coming in and just going, I'm playing with these guys who are champions. And, that's got to step up your game a little bit, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The old Yankees, when, a player would go to the old Yankee team, to the Yankee veterans, and say, look, you better play well, don't mess with our money.
I like that. Don't mess with my money. Well, this is a show that's heard nationally, so a lot of people are wondering, hey, how about some thoughts about the Cubs? And I'd also like to ask you maybe specifically about the Washington Nationals, because they were a good team coming into the season, but bringing in Dusty Baker, I think, was a master stroke, and they're having a pretty good season. What's your read on, as we speak, they're in first place in their division, and a lot of things could change, but what's your read on the Washington Nationals?
Well, I think they had a very toxic atmosphere in the clubhouse last year that was accentuated when we saw Papelbon and Bryce Harper get into a shoving match on national TV. That stuff has been put behind them. They have an outstanding pitching staff, and I think, Bruce, when it's all said and done, if you look at the league leaders for starting pitchers, for relievers, for overall pitching, the first 5 or 6 teams are the first 5 or 6 of the playoffs. Washington is right up there. They have Scherzer and Strasburg and Gio Gonzalez and Joe Ross and Tanner Roark. And it's a very good rotation. They've got some decent pitching depth in the bullpen. Not great. They don't score a ton of runs, but they've got some players who, like the Giants, have been there before. And I think they're a very good team. But when all this is said and done, whoever ends up facing Washington in the first round will have their hands.
Yeah, Washington, of course, the Giants faced Washington in the first round a couple of years ago, much different team. How about Dusty Baker? I got to know him quite well when I was covering the Giants. You maybe not know him quite as well, but you've obviously gotten to know him personally a little bit because he's such a personable guy. How much of a difference can a Dusty Baker or, say, a Bruce Bochy make to a team that is right there on the cusp of being a great team?
Well, I think it allows the players to play, and he supports the players, and, he's behind them. And he understands the ups and downs of the season. He's not under any pressure because he's Dusty Baker. Matt Williams is under pressure because he is just unmanaged. So for Bruce Bochy and Dusty Baker and people who've been around for a while, they understand the rhythm of the season. They understand what can happen within a ball club. And they create an atmosphere of just playing without playing with tension. You can lose 5 of 6. You can lose 6 of 7 because that's part of a season. Then you're going to win 8 of 9, and that's part of a season. These guys get it, and they translate that to the players.
I wonder if some of these players, when they have a manager who was a superstar, like Ted Williams for the Washington Senators, and then Dusty Baker was, I don't know if you'd call him a superstar, but he was a darn good player.
Very good player. Yeah.
How they kind of look at it and go, gosh, man, my manager, if they know anything about him, because a lot of times these young guys come up, they don't know.
Well, I mean, it's interesting you mentioned that. And I got to get Marty with some thoughts about this. I remember when Felipe Lou was here, and he was over 70 years old. This guy was a very good player, played a long time. But that begs the question: how many of the young kids today, or even the veterans, would have even remembered hearing about Felipe Lou because he retired in the early 1970s? But he had that. Didn't you notice that, Marty, with a certain manager has that aura of just respect? And Felipe was almost like, to me, he was almost like a royal figure, like a sort of like one of these ambassadors, who's been around a long time. Everybody sort of, just felt deferential to the guy because he was pretty easygoing, but also in command.
Well, I think the phrase is show me the man first, then show me the manager. Show me the man first, then show me the manager.
I like that.
Yeah.
And that's people Lou and Bruce Bochy and people like that, Dusty, they're exceptional people. And the managing just has to come along with it. And that's the way you get respect in the world, is being a special person. So I think that's true. Talking about these big-time players who become managers, they don't always do so well because they can't relate to a player maybe as mediocre or an average player, and they can't get it.
Yeah.
But the other fun point is most of the managers, so many of them are former catchers. And you don't find first basemen, third basemen, center fielders become managers. It's usually catchers. And it's people who understand the game and understand all the roles of the game. And that's part of it, too.
Hey, Marty, stay with us. We're going to cut to a quick commercial break here. So here's our first trivia question. After retiring as a player, with what team did baseball great Babe Ruth spend 1 year as a coach? Now, Marty, if you know the answer, don't say anything because we want to have the audience give a shot at this one. Email edward@sportsecon101.com the answer to that question, all right? After retiring as a player, with what team did baseball great Babe Ruth spend 1 year as a coach? Don't touch that dial. Sports Econ 101 will be right back.
I think it was Brooklyn, I think. Wasn't it, Marty? Brooklyn?
Brooklyn Dodgers.
Yeah. I think it was just 1 year. Yeah, he was hoping to be a manager someday, but he never got that call. I think because of his, don't you think it was because of his reputation of being kind of a hellraiser?
And what did he spend
Dodgers
Did they do that? Is that right?
Yeah, it's controversial because he only had that one season.
Yeah. Well, I always remember the story about Babe Ruth. As I remember, I guess it was either it may not have been his last home run, but it was his last big moment. He hit 3 home runs in a game at Forbes Field. They lost the game, but the last home run he hit, I believe, went out of the park entirely. And they said at the time, one of the sports writers, I think, was about 40 years old. Had been covering the games for years, and Babe Ruth was the same age. I think he was close to 40. And he said, oh, Babe Ruth looked old and tired, but man, when he slugged that ball out of here, it was like, taking a trip back in time. And to me, that's the thing I love about baseball the most, don't you, Marty? When you see a great player still be able to do it in his later years, like Willie Mays, or I mean, we should talk about that a little bit, because I think that's part of it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
All right.
Here we go.
Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. Here was our first trivia question. After retiring as a player, with what team did baseball great Babe Ruth spend 1 year as a coach? And I think our guest Marty Lurie knows that.
I'm going to let him answer, because I think that's where he's from.
Go ahead, Marty.
All right.
Yep.
You want the answer?
Now we want the answer.
Where did Babe Ruth finish off his? Well, he didn't finish his career off. Where did he coach for 1 year?
Oh, he finished with the Boston Braves.
Right.
As playing.
As player.
And he became a coach with Brooklyn Dodgers.
Brooklyn Dodgers.
Yeah.
What year?
That's a good question.
I would say 1938.
Yeah, that's right.
Very
1938.
Very good.
You must know something about baseball.
Marty, you're like me, though. I know you do live in the here and the now, but you're like me in that the wonderful thing about baseball is it is that marvelous mixture of men and memories of a bygone era that you can kind of tie together with this era from your childhood. And I don't want to regress too much here, but growing up, you had the unique pleasure of being a little boy in Brooklyn during the golden era when the Dodgers were in the World Series against the Yankees almost every year. What was that like?
Well, it was wonderful. You didn't have pro football, really. You had the New York Knicks and the New York Rangers, but, we didn't care about that. So baseball was the king. Baseball cards were the little cardboard pictures, and then you looked at the picture and told you the whole story of who the player was. So you loved that. Going to Evans Field and seeing Mantle and Mays and Duke Snyder and Don Newcomb and Don Larson and Berra. We had all of that in New York. And it was on TV all the time. We had the great announcers. And that was our sport. We played stickball, stoop ball, box ball, you name it, punch ball. Everything was involving a ball. And for kids in those days, we didn't really have a baseball. We would have the ball, and you put electrical tape around it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And if you had a bat and it broke, you nailed it together.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember doing that quite a bit. I think the bats were put together a little bit better back in those days, weren't they?
What was that?
The bats seemed to be a little bit more durable in those days. They didn't break as often.
That's right. They were, they didn't have the thin handle.
Yeah.
They had a thicker handle and it was a thicker bat. But you always had the bat, and you played stickball in the street. We didn't have dirt. We didn't have parks like we have today to go to a beautiful park and play baseball. We played in the cement, played in the schoolyard, and that's the way you played.
On the street even. What was it like? I don't know about you, Edward, and I can tell you what it was like for me walking into Seal Stadium to see the Giants for the first time at the age of 7. Everybody always talks about this, Marty, and I'm not sure if you're any different, but the first thing I noticed was this huge expanse of green, and it looked so pristine and so beautiful, and then the diamond, the dirt cut out there, and the mound. Is that the first thing you remember noticing when you walked into Evans Field as a little kid, or was it the smell of the place, maybe the peanuts and the hot dogs and the beer?
I think it was the outfield walls to see the advertisements that we had seen on TV.
Oh yeah.
Rail or the Gem Razor, where Abe Stark had to sign Win a Suit, or the scoreboard in right field, which we had seen, and to see that in color, to me, was amazing. Then the second thing is what you described as seeing the field. But the third thing, which I'll still never forget, and it still touches my heart today, is to see the Dodger uniform. To see the number under the heart, the red number, and to see the pure white uniform, and to know that, my God, I'm actually looking at Roy Campanella or Jackie Robinson or Don Newcomb. And that was it for me. And even today, last night I was watching the Dodger game on TV, and I just looked at the uniform, and I just transformed myself back to, being a 5-year-old or an 8-year-old, and thinking of what I saw in those days.
I was going to say it must be funny too. I was going to say it must be funny too, because now you're doing pre and post game shows for the team that goes up against the boyhood team of your memory, and how much of how strange that must be sometimes when you think about it.
Yeah, no, it is. But, you know, I gave up on the Dodgers, 60 years ago. So it's okay. You know, but so the Giants are, still learning a lot about Giants history.
Well, you had a lot of frustrating years, except for 1955.
For the Brooklyn Dodgers,
yeah.
yes. But we loved it. You know, we had all our baseball cards and everything, and we loved the story. And
well, and I was actually born in Brooklyn, and my mom and dad came from Brooklyn. Or actually, my dad came from Brooklyn, and was a huge Brooklyn Dodgers fan. So you guys would have had a good time together.
Yeah, no, we'll never forget it. You know, 1955, if you remember it, what happened in '56? They lost the 7th game at Don Newton. The Yankees, they used to knock them all over the place.
Well, you were just a little kid when.
Used to hit them.
I was going to say, you were just a little kid when the Dodgers moved away. That must have been devastating.
Well, I moved first. I moved to Miami Beach in September of 1956, and the Dodgers moved to Los Angeles, of course, the April 1958.
Mm-hmm. So we're going back a few years. Yeah, that is a few years back. But it is amazing, Marty, how that had such an important effect on your life so that today, you've come full circle. Now you're talking about the game that you grew up watching, and it's really become a big part of your life. It is a part of your life
I think for everybody who loves the game, I can lead the charge a little bit, talk about it, but you have it. Everyone has that connection back to being a kid. Life was uncomplicated when we were looking for heroes, bonding with others. The baseball player for us growing up in that era, that was our hero. Now, today kids are different. Heroes are different. They could be musicians, could be actors, because there's so much information that's on the internet, so much on TV and movies. And of course, it could be any sport. It could be golf, hockey, basketball, football, baseball. So it's different, but it's still universal. You take a child from about 7 to 10 years old, they're going to find someone to be a hero other than their parents.
Huh.
One thing I think you enjoyed doing, and I've noticed it in your interviews when I listen to them, and it's a question I love to ask when I was doing a lot of Giants and A's coverage back in the 90s and the early aughts and even as far back as the 80s, is you go up to a player and you ask him, what was your first day in the big leagues like? And it's amazing, almost to a man. I don't think I've met a single guy who can't describe to me in great detail everything that happened in that day. And just imagine what it must be like, Marty. And I'm sure that's have you talked to anybody who's told you an unusual story about something that really was extraordinary that happened on opening day? Because I'm trying to rack my memory. But I'm just wondering, because you get a lot of stories from these guys.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what's your favorite story?
There's so many. I mean, you can go about Frank Robinson, his opening day for Cincinnati and hitting a home run off Paul Minner. Back to, Tim Salmon. I mean, it comes to mind very quickly. Tim Salmon was a very good outfielder for the Angels. And when he first got to the big leagues, he was opening day, and he went back to the hotel. And he described this picture, a great image. He said, I had this large bed, biggest bed I ever saw. I just laid down in this bed, looked up at the ceiling, and said, I am in the major leagues. And I always liked that image because I could know the feeling of the excitement of being someplace you say, wow, I'm finally here. And I think those kinds of stories are the ones I like.
Yeah, it's special. I mean, I got a little taste of traveling with the Giants and actually getting to do a couple of games on the radio. And I remember sitting behind the microphone and thinking, wow, I'm getting to talk about these guys and think of the stories. Each one of them, with rare exception, had to fight and scrap like heck.
Willie McCovey is a great one.
Yeah.
Willie McCovey was called up from Phoenix, and he got up that morning, and they went in. Bill Rigney says, you're hitting third or whatever that day, and they put him in, and he hit 4 hits. And it was a day game. They didn't even have a uniform. They could barely fit him. And he ended up with 2 triples and 2 singles, and every ball hit off the wall against Robin Roberts on July 30th, 1959. It's probably the greatest debut anyone's ever had in the big league.
It's funny, too, you talked to Willie about that day, and he loves talking about it because it comes back so fresh because it's like your first girlfriend. You remember every look in her eye and the hand.
Well, also, how many triples has he hit?
Yeah, how many triples did Willie hit? Because Willie wasn't exactly that fast a guy. Early in his career, he actually was. Have you seen Willie Mack at the ballpark at all lately, Marty? Because I haven't been out there much this year yet. And I know Willie's in his 80s now, or close to it. How's he doing?
Did you say McCovey or
Yeah. Oh, McCovey first, but I'm Willie. Yeah. Willie's still out there. That's good. Good.
You know, he's got a lot of physical issues, and he's in a wheelchair. But still, he comes to every game. Is as sharp as can be. He listens to the shows, and you know, he's very much a supporter of the Giants. And it's great to see him. Mays is as sharp as he's ever been. He's 85 years old now, and still knows his stories and can tell you in detail of the catch he made against the Dodgers in '51, or losing the hat and how that happened, or how the basket catch started, and of course coming up to the Giants in '51 and not getting a hit for his first 12 times up.
And then being on deck when Bobby Thompson hit his bad.
He was on deck.
Yeah, the shot heard ground rule.
You know, it's funny. I'm sure you've shaken Willie's hand before, and he's not a big guy. He's 5'11", about probably in his playing days he was about 190, but solidly built. But he has these enormous hands, and when he grabs your hand, and I've got a big hand, and not only does he have a strong hand, but he grabs your hand, it feels like you're in a vice. It's like, hey Willie, hey Willie, just take it easy, man. Has he ever done that to you? Because he did it to me a few times.
He was on deck in '51 when Thompson hit the home run. He was as nervous as could be. He didn't even realize Thompson won the game.
Yeah, that's right. He did. Well, he's just a 20-year-old kid at the time. He's just still fresh.
And in '62, to the day when the Giants came back and beat the Dodgers in the playoffs, he got to hit that inning, and he said, "Now I want to be part of it. I know I can get it done." And he hit a screaming line drive off Ed Roebuck.
There you go.
Which basically tied the game.
Yeah. Hey, Marty.
Right.
Marty, we're going to have to, unfortunately, we're going to have to let you go because we have to cut to a commercial break. But we want to thank you for joining us on Sports Econ 101.
Great. Anytime, guys.
Thanks.
Great stuff, Marty. Thanks so much. Marty Lurie, good guy. And again, he does the Giants pre- and post-game shows on the Giants flagship station. He's just a wealth of baseball stories.
Okay, here's our last trivia question here. Or excuse me, here's our second trivia question. Sorry. The average one of these is 57 inches long. What?
Ooh.
Stay with us. Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back. Okay.
Average one of these is 57 inches.
It's kind of tough because it can be anything.
That's my dick, of course. Sorry. Sorry. I couldn't resist.
Of course not.
I couldn't resist. Who drew these pictures again?
My sister.
Your sister?
Well, she didn't draw
They're
it.
kind of neat. They're like they look sort of like Salvador Dali.
If you go up to them, they're actually little pieces of paper that she cut out.
Wow.
She spent a lot of time doing that.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
It's very surrealistic looking.
Yeah.
Interesting. And this one is just is this one the same?
No, same thing. If you go up to those little, the treasure chests, she cut out the little gold coin. She did not use a little
Look
punch
at
hole.
that. That is so cool.
Take a look at this. Oh, yeah, I can see the paper.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Takes her many.
All right, Steve Bitker, and we're ready. We're heading down the home stretch here.
That's right.
God, I hope the Warriors, win. I'm so worried. If they lose,
it's going to be demoralizing for them.
Oh God, it's going to be as disappointing as it was, exciting when they won. Perfect time because I told Ben just a lot after 1:30, so should be good. Hopefully.
Steve here.
Steve, this is Edward Brown and Bruce McGowan. How are you?
Pretty good, Edward. How are you?
Very good.
Kids, what's going on? This is Bob Agnew. Light, tight, and bright. Come on. Come on. Light, tight, and bright. LBT.
Okay.
Remember, what did he also say? Positive mental attitude. PMA. PMA, McGowan. McGowan.
All right, so Steve, before you came on, we asked a sports trivia question. So when I come on, I'm going to welcome the audience back, and I'm going to ask the trivia question.
We'll introduce it.
And then we'll introduce you, okay? All right. Here we go.
I'm just eating, don't worry.
Okay, ready?
Right.
Here we go. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. Here was our second trivia question. This was a hard one. The average one of these is 57 inches long, and it's kind of sports related.
So I'm looking at maybe 5, not quite 5 feet.
well, let's see, 5 feet would be 60 inches, so it's a little less than that.
A boogie board.
No, a pool cue.
A pool cue.
Yeah, that's kind of hard.
That's
And we also have now the next one we have is going to be a little bit easier.
Okay.
But
We got to get another guest on. Then.
We have another guest. Why don't you introduce our
Good
guest?
friend of mine. He's been at KCBS Radio here in San Francisco, All News Radio, as the morning sports drive announcer for 25 years. A good friend of mine. We worked together at KNBR back in the late 80s, early 90s together. Steve Bitker joining us. And Steve, we just had Marty Lurie on talking some baseball, so we'll kind of continue with a little baseball conversation with you. What's your feelings about the early season so far, the teams that are kind of in command right now? Are you surprised by any of the teams that are doing well? Are you kind of expecting?
I think everyone's surprised when the Cubs do well. But go ahead.
Well, but I mean, the Cubs are doing well. Obviously, Washington, the Giants, the American League. You've got Baltimore is playing extremely well, and of course over in the American League's West, Texas is having a great season. I mean, are you surprised by any of these things that have happened in the early campaign?
It's a good question, Bruce. I don't really think anything is really surprising. I mean, I felt the Giants would dominate the West. I thought the Dodgers, the second straight year, were a golden opportunity with their pumping loads of money to come up with a big free agent acquisition. In a way, they were hampered by the fact that they had two of the best prospects out of the minor leagues, and Corey Seager, who could get National League Rookie of the Year honors, and they weren't willing to trade him, and Julio Urias, who has made his major league debut within the last 2 to 3 weeks. He's only 19 years old. They didn't want to trade him either, and every team was asking for those guys in return, like we talked with Philly earlier about Cole Hamels. On the other hand, they never made an effort to go sign Johnny Cueto, who's the best free agent acquisition in the entire major leagues, and instead they signed Scott Kazmir, who has been mediocre, Kenta Maeda, who's been okay, but Kershaw's alone in terms of comparing him to what he had last year, and he and Greinke were a fabulous one too. Not surprising, although maybe their record is better than anybody imagined. Washington in the Mets in the East, no surprise. Texas in the West. Maybe I'm surprised by Seattle being as good as Americans have been. I'm intrigued by Cleveland because they've got some great young fireballing right-handed pitchers. And Baltimore, Boston, and Toronto with the team.
So, Steve, let me ask you, sometimes you see a trade and you say, what were they thinking? And then other times you look and you go, oh, getting Samardzija and Cueto, that was awesome. I mean, what do you think is going on with why would that happen?
Why would what in particular happen?
I mean, just, where it's like, sometimes it seems like it's so left side or right side from the standpoint of, oh my gosh, what were these guys thinking? Why would they take this on? This specific player in this situation.
Are you talking about why the Giants would take on Cueto?
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying. Now, that one was excellent.
Well, you're talking about maybe spending too much money on a player that is overrated, or
exactly.
Well, I don't know I don't know how about you feel about this, but I think sometimes general managers are just hoping they can catch lightning in a bottle. That's part of their job, don't you think?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think the Dodgers were probably a little bit scared off because Cueto struggled during his brief time with Kansas City, although I think he been shut out in the World Series, and he experienced some elbow discomfort, and that was probably a big red flag, so they stayed away. But, the Giants did their due diligence and had him checked out. With a wise investment, and he's not only been sensational in terms of 10 wins and a 2.10 ERA, but he's incredibly fun. He's incredibly entertaining to watch, and according to his teammates, to play with. So that was a huge deal. And when the Dodgers signed Kazmir, Maeda, I think he's been good, but not great. So I just wonder, Dodgers spending so much money on so many players who were okay, but no great shakes. Brett Anderson, McCarthy. They signed Matt Latos. That didn't work out. And Kershaw's all alone in terms of being the ace of the staff, and their bullpen still sucks. So I don't know. And they've got more guys, former general managers in that front office than any other team in the major league by far. So I don't know what their problem is.
Too many Chiefs and not enough Indians.
Well, maybe. I mean, you get ahead of the deadline a month from now or a half from now, and maybe they'll come up with a big move. But I wouldn't hold my breath. I mean, I'm hearing the Cubs are going to go after both Yankee relievers, hoping to get one.
in terms of Miller and Chapman, that would be a great move for the Cubs. I think the Cubs are in a win now mode, a win now way of thinking. They've got all the pieces, even though they lost Schwarber for the season, and they don't want to waste this opportunity.
Yeah, no question. I mean, when you have that chance, and the Cubs have been playing so well that you have that window of opportunity. On the other hand, you have a team like the Giants who seem to mix and match every other year. They put it together, and you look at them on paper, it's a very good team. But these World Series wins that they've had have not. By the way, are you out of Candlestick Park? It sounds like the wind is howling there. Where are you anyway, Steve?
Bruce, I am out. I'm out in the western, most western part of Alameda.
Ah.
I'm right on the bay, looking out on San Francisco with my. I'm with my daughter and my 9-month-old grandson having lunch out here.
Oh, sweet.
So it's a little bit breezy, and maybe there's some interference. I'm not sure.
No, it sounds like you're at Candlestick Park. I was just thinking of our wonderful day. Steve and I worked together, and during that time we did work together. It was at Candlestick Park, and whenever I think of Candlestick Park, Steve, I always think of the wind and the cold. But there's something about that place I kind of miss. As great as the Giants' new ballpark is, don't you have those kind of feelings for Candlestick Park too? Because we saw so many wonderful games there.
You mean nostalgia for Candlestick?
Yeah, not so much for the park itself, but just for the teams that played there. I mean, Will Clark and Matt Williams and Dusty Baker, his first year managing in 1993, John Burkett and Rod Beck, and a lot of characters.
Terrible stadium.
It was, but I mean, they had so many great. And Willie Mays, of course, played there. McCovey.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, I don't really have any nostalgia for Candlestick at all. I have some nostalgia for Seal Stadium, but not
really for Seal Stadium.
Wow.
But Seal Stadium wasn't around that long for us. I mean, we were kids. I guess because of the first.
Even though I was little, I still have
Yeah.
memories of it, and it was known at the time as the most beautiful minor league park in America.
That's true.
And there was one member of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors that wanted the New York Giants to play at Seal Stadium and eventually double-deck the place. But he was outvoted by the other members of the board who were in cahoots with Mayor George Christopher and the team owner Horace Stoneham, who wanted to have a stadium built a little bit south of downtown where they could have 50,000 parking.
Yeah, that was the key, parking in those days, because America was becoming more mobile in the late 50s, early 60s, and that's why Dodger Stadium was so successful, because everybody in LA could drive to the park. You remember driving to the park though with your dad? Wasn't it kind of a
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember the long line of traffic forming when you got around the corner after the airport where you could first see Candlestick.
Yeah.
My dad wouldn't go way to the front and then cut in. That wasn't acceptable. But he wouldn't necessarily lose himself in the right lane too early either. So
smart guy, knew how to
I
maneuver.
think the closer you got to Candlestick, the more excited you were to get in and see a ball game. I mean, I have great memories of so many fabulous games at Candlestick throughout my childhood. So many great personalities. You mentioned Will the Thrill, but the stadium itself, I don't think.
Well, and you had a chance. You've had a chance, as I have, to interview most of the big name players over the last 20 years, and a guy that unfortunately just he was a great player to watch, but very, very difficult to get to know. Barry Bonds. I know you had your moments with him. What was your impression of him when he was, dealing with the media, and specifically your interactions with him?
Can I use any of the 7 words that you can't say on?
No. We are FCC regulated and all that fun stuff.
What was what? You guys had a kind of a little run-in once, didn't you? Or what happened? That's not uncommon. He did that with a lot of people. But I mean, shoot, what actually happened? Was it just after a game and he was ticked off about something?
I don't know if you remember. It was his second or third. His first year was '93. Was it '95 when there was the work stoppage?
Yes. Well, '94 was the work stoppage. In '95, they came back.
It was early in the season, and they were playing the Mets and Candlestick. And you may remember the name of this guy for the Mets, Terry Mulholland.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
And this guy hit this clothesline shot headed toward the left field wall, and Bonds did not move. He kept his hands on his knees, and the knees were bent, and he was staring at the plate, and the ball went right over his head, and he never moved.
Was it a double?
Ball bounced off the wall for a double, and everybody knew that Bonds thought the thing was going to go out, and he just didn't move.
Right.
when Bonds came out of the bottom of the first inning, he heard boos, and it was the first time any of us had ever heard Bonds booed as a member of the Giants. And he was booed probably in part because, you know, he was showboating that fly ball, but also just because of his attitude, which, you know, people were beginning to get a great wind up after 2.5 years.
So afterwards, you went up to him.
Still there? You still there, Bruce?
Yeah, no. I was going to say afterwards, you went up to him in the clubhouse.
Yeah, well, what happened was in the locker room afterwards, you know, we were like gathered around Bond's locker, and I just very, very gently in a non-threatening way said to him, you know, you heard boos for the very, very first time. You know, how did you react? What was your feeling about that? And he just lashed out. He said, you know, if those people who were booing me, they can play any better than I can. They can get their asses down here and they can perform.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Barry, you know, you say it doesn't bother you, but it sounds like it does. And then he got right in my. He said, no, it sounds to me like you're trying to make something out of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, wow, this is wild. So I go up to the press box and I'm editing that sound to use on the air. And the AP writer who was sitting in front of me heard that sound. He had already written this. And he said, oh, my God, can I hear that? He listened to that, and the next thing you know, that was the AP lead all around the country. ESPN, CNN, everyone picked it up. Headlines in the paper the next day, Bonds rips fans.
Wow.
And Larry Baer and Peter McGowan Baker went into a prevent defense, and they gathered around Bonds at the ballpark, and they said, you need to apologize. And so they gathered reporters around, and Bonds, in his own way, said regarding what he said the reporter was baiting me.
Really? You were baiting him, Steve.
Yeah.
I know you too well. You were baiting him. You just wanted to get him. You were out to get Bonds. Admit it.
I defend myself, but I ended up calling Dusty.
Uh-huh.
Not like when I felt about it, Dusty was, you know, he was apologetic. He was embarrassed.
Yeah.
And, you know, that just, there were so many things, you know, the way he treated Sam Skinner. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's an endless number of things.
It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a call for Steve.
Yeah.
No
I was
problem.
going to say, in fact, that we got to cut to another commercial break. So, Steve, sometime we'll have you on again when we have more time. Okay? Thanks.
Great. Thanks so much,
us.
Steve.
Okay.
That's a great story. But I was going to ask him about Dusty Baker, and we'll talk about that in the next segment. But because I had a lot of dealings with Dusty Baker, was a great guy.
Very good.
All right.
Yeah, because when we come back, we only have 2 minutes. So
Yeah.
we'll make it a quick
Sure.
story.
I'll make it a quick story.
All right. So here we go. Again, this one's a little easier than the last one, but it's the same along the same line.
Okay.
In Olympic competition, what must be 16 feet 3 inches long and 4 inches wide? The first email with the correct answer wins a free 3 days to the United States, the Lighthouse Resort. Email Edward at sportsecon101.com the answer to that question, all right? In Olympic competition, what must be 16 feet 3 inches long and 4 inches wide? Don't touch that dial because Sports Econ 101 will come back with Bruce with telling us a story, and then we'll cut out for the day.
And I know the answer to that one.
Yeah, that one's a little easier.
That one's easier.
All right.
That's too bad I had that little wind on Steve's and then on Vernon's too, but that wasn't bad. Steve was great. That's a great story. I didn't think he'd be able to. It's something I did not know that it became a national story. I wasn't covering that. I remember I wasn't covering that day. Yeah. He was covering for KNBR. It was a day game, a weekday game, and I had a day off. I didn't feel like going, and the Giants were not very good at the time. It was just 95, so they were coming off the strike here, and they were really bad. Bonds was pissed off all the time, and I remember hearing the tape and thinking, Jesus Christ, this guy's really lost it. Holy.
Well, that was the year that Matt Williams was doing really well.
Yeah, and then he got hurt, and then of course, the year after that, they traded him away to. That was a great deal. They got Jeff Kent and Julian Tavares and Darrell Hamilton. They got him in a free agent move actually. Darrell Hamilton was murdered by
Arizona. He went to.
What's that?
Arizona, Matt Williams.
Originally they traded him to Cleveland. That's where they got Jeff Kent.
Right.
Yeah, they got a guy named Joe Roa, Jeff Kent, Julian Tavares, and there was one other player in that deal that was pretty good.
Did Jeff Kent play in Cleveland?
Yeah. He was with the Mets and then with Cleveland.
Okay.
But I'm trying to remember, there was one other. Oh, yeah, Jose Vizcaino.
Oh, yeah.
Starting shortstop. Very good player.
He was good.
Very good player.
Okay, here we go. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. Third trivia question. In Olympic competition, what must be 16 feet, 3 inches long, and 4 inches wide?
That's easy. A pole vault.
No.
No? Oh, a javelin.
No.
No.
Wrong sport.
Oh.
It's indoors.
Oh, it's indoors. Don't know.
Balance beam.
Never would have guessed that one.
Yeah, a 4-inch wide pole vault. That'd be pretty big.
Not even cold. Yeah, I should have guessed that.
That's
You're
okay.
right, you're right.
You thought you did.
Yeah,
Okay,
quick story about Dusty Baker. Well, in 2002, they're in the playoffs. They've beaten Atlanta, so Dusty's won his first ever playoff series as a manager. I was traveling with the team at the time. We're in St. Louis. He invited me into his suite to talk with him. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. We just got in from Atlanta, and he just wanted to unload. And it relates to Steve Bitker's story about Barry Bonds. He goes, Bonds and Kent, these two guys are beating each other up all the time, and I'm having to get in the middle of it. And I thought, wow, Dusty's going to be gone after this year. He can't handle this anymore. And sure enough, he left after that year.
Wow.
So yeah, as the old saying goes, familiarity breeds contempt. Sometimes he'd been there 10 years. He knew all the stories.
Gotcha.
He knew where all the bodies were buried.
Sometimes when you get a new player in, if he thinks he's a little bigger than he is, that.
Well, and with Bonds and Kent, you had two guys, same personality, but they just did not like each other. Very crafty, kind of angry guys.
Okay, here's our thoughts for the day. We're going to close out. In 1921, the New York Times decided to devote the first 13 pages to the heavyweight championship between Jack Dempsey and George Carpenter, except for one little space in the front page declaring the formal end to World War I. There's your priorities for you.
Boy.
And
hello.
In the very first Boston Marathon, I couldn't remember the year. I think it was 18-something. 1890 or something. Only 15 runners competed.
Wow.
And only 10 finished.
Whoa. Well, it's 26 miles, right?
True.
That's a run.
I think a lot more people finished now.
Yeah.
Okay, tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and giving away more free vacations for answering sports trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Good night, America.
So long.
All right, my friend.
Okay, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. I'm going to use your bathroom real quick, too. After sitting there for 2 hours.
Oh, yeah.
I'm getting this.